it's harder. It is more challenging. It's also more rewarding. So people that don't like to do it don't like the rejection. They don't like to talk to people they don't know, and that's fine. And they really need to look at, all right, how else would they build their business? And that's one of the bigger challenging parts. Make sense? Okay. What else would you like to get out of it? We got 2 hours together. Okay, lots of information, and this is one of my favorite topics. And let me take a step back. I shared with you guys before. I've been in real estate since 1993. I've been managing and owning an office over from 99 to 2014. I was operating partner in Plymouth. So quite a few years. In 2010, moved out this way to manage the Cold Maker office in Northville. In 2005, 2010, 5 worst years in real estate. And because of learning these systems and tools and having agents that would take it and run with it, we grew that office in the #1 spot in all of Metro Detroit and closed units. So I know it works. It works in a good market, it works in a bad market, it works in a small market, it works in a large market. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be physicals and expires. Depending on the type of market you have, sometimes there's going to be one group that's larger than the other. Obviously, when the market was bad, we had a lot of expires, just because houses weren't selling. And there was jokes about it. I mean, there was a saying, it's better to be the second wife and the third realtor. Yeah, because the first realtor does, because of the challenging market, sometimes sellers don't understand what they need to do in a bad market to get it sold. So by the second time, or the third time, they realize that they need to listen to the agent. And they need to have an agent that has the guts enough to tell them the truth of where it's going to sell at. In the market we have today, we see expired shrinking. What's going on with expired, or FSBOs?
Are they growing?
They're growing. Yeah, because if we think about it, in a strong market, when houses are selling the first day they come on, sellers like, I don't need an agent. I can put my house on Zillow. I talked to for sale by owner. I met her yesterday. I walked through her home. She put it on Zillow over the weekend. She's had a bunch of calls. She's had a few showings, and she has 2 offers. There's really not a problem that she has, and she may be able to sell it on her own. Maybe. Because even though she gets an offer, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to close. Lots of things that can come up that she might not have the knowledge and the skills to deal with. However, right now, she's sitting pretty good. Okay, so, it just makes sense. So, 2005, 2010, I would want agents to be really strong in expires. Now, there's still some expires out there, but it's important to be really strong for sale by owners. It's just the market. And probably next year, we'll see more expires starting to come up. As the market starts to slow down, sometimes agents and definitely the public are not aware of where the market's exactly at. So, a lot of times when we hear things in real estate in the news, for us, it should be old news. It really should. In some areas that we have, I actually see the market starting to slow down. But that's the problem, but if agents and homeowners use pricing strategy from 3 months ago in today's market, that could cost them money. If the market's slowing and they're pricing it aggressively as it's still going up, they're going to miss the mark. So I bet you into this year, we're going to see more expires than we have today. No one has a crystal ball, but that's kind of where I think that the market's heading. So there's always plenty of expires if it's supposed to come. All right, what else would you guys really like to get out of today? Okay, and that's a fair answer. I'm getting started. You don't know what you don't know. All right, and we'll definitely get into it. Anything else you would like?
No, I agree.
And I'm sorry, I forget.
Lynn.
Okay, Lynn and Jay. Perfect. All right, so let's kind of get started here then on where we are today. So page 5, I believe, in your handouts, where it says why you are here. We're all on the same page with that. We have a little Greek house that looks like there, the foundation. No, we don't. Okay.
That's on 6 for us.
Okay, our numbers are different. So as you see here, labeled number 8 for session 8, I'm assuming we have power session 8, for sale by owners and expireds. And you'll see this is one of the pillars of your business. You have working with METs, which is really your center of influence or your sphere of influence. And again, your first, typically your first closings will come from that group. Lynn, are you new in the business?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Farming, which that takes time. All right, as a newer agent, I would probably not spend a ton of time on farming. Okay, because if we think of farming, does farming happen overnight? I plant a seed and I can, harvest it tomorrow. It takes time. And as a newer agent, you're probably looking to do, we already know real estate's a 90-day cycle. So the things you do today really don't pay out to 90 days from now. So farming is even further out. Could you get some immediate business from it? Sure. Not highly likely, but possible. So I'd rather you spend your time in those areas that you're going to see more immediate results. So open houses, buyers coming through, that's a great way of finding out business. And obviously what we're talking about today, for sale by owners and expires, and then tomorrow I think agent referrals. So as a newer agent, I would be focusing my time on working with your sphere, open houses, FSBOs, and expires. Okay. So also farming could be what we call circle prospecting. Who knows what circle prospecting is? We also call it just listed, just sold. Did you guys, maybe we talked about that?
Just going back into a neighborhood where the property is sold,
Correct.
but not necessarily your property.
Correct. So it doesn't have to be. Don't say that it is, if it's not. But it's an easy script. Instead of saying, I just recently listed a property, you can say, my property was recently sold in your area, and there's a high demand for it. So you just give it the script there. You just change that first sentence is all you need to do. So why is circle prospecting important? Why do we call it just listed, just solds?
Because people tend to jump on the bandwagon, so to speak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Statistics show us that once one property is sold, others will follow. And people realize, especially in an upward market, people realize, oh wow, they got that amount for it? Honey, we're moving. Because they may have had thoughts and plans of moving anyways, but just because of the market being down, they didn't want to do that. So it's a great way. Just solds are typically a little more powerful than just listed, because just sold, you know exactly what it's sold for. But you can definitely pick up business from that. Statistically, we know once a property is sold, 1 or 2 more will pop up. All right, so let's jump into expires. The following page, we have Chris Heller and Jean Rivers. So Chris Heller, so they did update this. I'm glad to see this was revised this year. Because we talked about before in my last session, Chris Heller is now our CEO of Keller Williams. And Chris Heller started his business back in 1988 as an agent. Just like you, Jay, didn't know. And in this, his information here, he talked about when he got started. He didn't know what he was doing. There was no formal training in his office. Because for that matter, there wasn't any informal training either. One day, Chris got a script for calling for sale by owners, which I'm going to give you that identical script he used. Okay. He wasn't quite sure what FSBOs were, but he quickly figured out and started practicing the script every day. Pretty soon, he knew what to say. As he practiced and used the script, he got better. Chris got appointments in the listings. As a result, in his first year in business, Chris had 27 transactions, and 24 of them were for sale by owners. He became an expert at for sale by owners. And having 24 transactions in your first year, it's a pretty good year. Okay. So Chris's office closes more than 130 transactions. Gene Rivers, he started his business. He's an agent down in Florida, Tallahassee. He also is a Keller Williams master faculty, which means he's certified to teach a lot of different courses. He owns, I think, multiple Keller Williams offices. He has his own team. But they also built their business on for sale by owners. Because in the spring of 2007, his listing specialists were actively pursuing 120 for sale by owners. For sale by owners and expires account for approximately 10% of its current business. So a lot to be had. Now, what do we say FSBO stands for? FSBO?
Or sale by owners.
No. Fastest source of business opportunity. Fastest source of business opportunity. Yeah, it also could stand for sale by owners too. But I like to look at it as fastest source of business opportunity. So let's flip ahead a couple pages, so that could be page 10, I think, in yours. Who they are. So that's what it says at the top of the page. It talks about FSBOs. All right, obviously we know these are homeowners that are trying to sell it themselves. So myth one, for sale by owners don't want to deal with a real estate agent. That is false. Okay, the truth is only 8% of for sale by owners say they don't want to deal with an agent. So 92% of the for sale by owners out there will deal with an agent. Almost sounds counterintuitive, right? Because they want to sell themselves. Okay, but they also know that most buyers are working with agents. Okay, so a lot of the for sale by owners will even pay a commission. Okay, they may pay you 3% if you bring the buyer. So we don't want to think, okay, they don't want to deal with us. You know, they're happy. Most of them are typically happy to talk to you, to show you their home, to tell you more information about it. Because again, they know you may have a buyer. Okay? All right, next page. Market share. For sale by owners comprise a very small portion of home sales. But to properly understand FSBO market share, let's take a moment to discuss how NAR classes for sale by owners in general. Because every couple of years, NAR, the National Association of Realtors, comes out with their profile of home buyers and sellers. I think this is a very good resource to find out what's going on in the market and what changes are being made. It's kind of interesting because they've been doing this as long as I've been in the business, and when it came to print advertising, you know, we saw a big drop, probably starting in 93. You know, I got started in the business because print advertising was very popular. You're probably too young to remember, but when I can remember when we would go through the Sunday paper, I mean, how many advertisements would you see in the classifieds? The classifieds was huge on a Sunday. How big is it now today? I don't even get the paper anymore, but you know, it's probably not that big. However, realtors are spending a lot of money on print advertising. And then even though it was dropping like a rock, you know, there's a lot of realtors and real estate offices that were still doing it. Not because it was effective, but because that's how they always did it. Okay, so this profile of home buyers and sellers really show, okay, where do buyers find houses? How do buyers and sellers find their realtor? So, I mean, there's, I don't know, 100 different questions on there, probably more, that get into depth. So it's really important to look at. So in the next few pages, we're going to be talking about that and how it relates to FSBOs. So we want to look at NAR, and we want to look at and break down for sale by owners in two classifications, and what they consider a closed market FSBO and an open market FSBO. So a closed market FSBO is basically that homeowner that sold it to somebody they knew, whether it be a family member, a neighbor, a friend. Okay, they basically already had the buyer or already knew the buyer. Okay, so they didn't need a realtor. They weren't marketing the home. Okay, maybe the title company, they got a purchase from the title company, maybe they hired an attorney. Whatever the case is, you know, it was a very easy transaction. So I don't look at that as, we didn't have that opportunity. You know, they didn't need our services. That's just going to happen. So what we really want to pay attention to is what's called the open market for sale by owners. And they say the second type of FSBO often involves owners who want to sell their homes themselves but do not have buyers already lined up. These individuals need to do everything a real estate agent would do: listing and marketing the home, showing it to potential buyers, negotiating contract, handling all the paperwork. Okay? So obviously those we do have an opportunity for. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
Welcome.
Sorry, I'm late.
It's okay, so we're covering for sale by owners and expires. Today we're on page 11?
10.
We're on page 10, and we're on the same page. So this is going to be interesting. And your name?
Sheree Newman.
Sheree. Are you a new agent, Sheree?
Working at it. I don't quite have my license.
Oh, okay, well, great. So
But
you're a
yes.
very, very new agent.
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we really want to look at our time, spend our time on those open market FSBOs. Okay? So why do you think most for sale by owners, or why do you think out of that, why do they try to sell it themselves? Why does a homeowner decide to go for sale by owner versus hire a realtor?
They don't want to pay a commission.
That's the number one thing. They don't want to pay a commission. Okay? Why else could they not want to?
Maybe they don't trust agents.
Maybe they don't trust agents. It's also on the list. All right, next page. I think it breaks it down. All right, so the number one answer is, ding, 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 I want to pay a commission. And on this graph here, they do break down, and again, this is from the NAR profile of home buyer and sellers, all FSBOs. The seller new buyer, again, they were classifying that as a closed market, versus the seller did not know buyer, an open market. So if we look at 61% of those homeowners or those FSBOs selling that didn't have the buyer, 61%, didn't want to pay a commission. All right, sold to friend, relative, friend or neighbor, small percentage. Buyer contacted seller directly, that's 15%. Didn't want to deal with an agent, so that's probably they didn't trust an agent. Maybe they had a bad experience with an agent, that was 8%. Agent was unable to sell home. So this is also a expired / FSBO. So originally they were an expired. Okay, they didn't have success in selling the home. Okay, so they listed it by owner. Saying if that's the results I'm gonna get from an agent, why don't I just do it myself? Seller has real estate license. So on a side note, if you're gonna sell your home and you're an agent and you go for sale by owner, get out of the business. Really, because what you're telling the world is you don't see a value in your own occupation. I mean, granted, if I was selling my home, which I did 4 years ago, I would prefer to have both sides of the transaction. And I'm going to work hard to have both sides of the transaction. Let me just save the commission, right? Who doesn't want to save the commission? However, I'm not going to list it for sale by owner, because now I'm announcing to everybody I know, I don't see a value in my own profession. So if you come to that point, remember these words, get out of the business. All right. See, I can say that now, not being a productivity coach or an operating principal. It doesn't matter if I tick people off, but. All right, let's see here. Could not find suitable agent. And that was also, these are just 1% and other. So majority of it is they didn't want to pay a commission. Buyer contacted them correctly, so nothing to do about that. Didn't want to deal with an agent. All right. Next page. Also, something to keep in mind, out of these statistics, these are from transactions, for sale by owner, transactions that actually closed. So there's also a lot of transactions that went pending where a for sale by owner accepted an offer from a buyer, but it never closed. Okay, so we're only looking at even a smaller section of those that actually closed. Something to keep in mind. All right, so how past for sale by owner sellers will oh, this is interesting. How past for sale by owner sellers will sell current home. So let's say the homeowner sold their home FSBO before. How willing are they to sell it for sale by owner again? So this is kind of interesting. So where we look at the open market where seller did not know buyer, 56% said they would do it again.
Our numbers are different.
Yeah, we have different stats.
That makes teaching a class always fun.
You know what, ours is a 2007 edition.
Yes.
I bet you have 2015.
I do.
Yeah.
we had a conversation about this just a few days ago, and they thought,
That might have been our only 2015.
okay. So let's see how this varies. We'll use this as a learning experience. Excuse me, Jay, here as I take all your stuff. So, because this was from the 2006 NAR profile. This one here, they don't have a date, which I would wish they would show the date of exactly which profile it came from. But, so you guys had 46%. So in 2007, it was starting to go down. FSBO's probably had a tougher time. Here, it's a little bit higher. So I went from 46% to 56%. But either way, I mean, think about it. So you had a pool of sellers that successfully sold their home for sale by owner, but to do it again, 44% probably wouldn't. So not quite half, but pretty darn close. So what does that tell you?
Must have been a hassle.
It's not as easy as it looks. Right? And I know that firsthand. I first got started, how I got started into real estate was actually investing, real estate investing. I was 17 at the time when I bought my first house, and it was a flip. Fixed it up, sold it when I was 18. So when I went to sell it, you know, I would look at what I thought, what I perceived the realtors to do, and say, you know, I can do that. And also at 17, I didn't get a lot of attention from realtors. You know, they look at this teenage kid, you know, so they didn't really spend a whole lot of time with me. So I'm like, I can do it myself. So I, you know, made a sign and I put it in the front lawn and I would advertise it and hold it open. And at a certain point, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. Okay? So I eventually listed with an agent. And I listed with an agent, not the first one that contacted me. I listed with an agent that consistently stayed in touch with me. Okay? With expireds, you really like to be one of the first ones that contacted them, because expires a little bit different. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. But with for sale by owners, so if I'd had agents that called me and I just put it on the market, do I really have a need for them? I mean, what's my thinking? If I want to spend the time to do it myself, you know, there's nothing an agent can say to say, oh yeah, okay, I'll list with you. But 2 months, 3 months down the road, has my thinking changed? Absolutely. All right. Now I realize it's not as easy as it looks. And even though I didn't have success, I wouldn't fall under this characteristic, but when I built our house in Plymouth, I was my own general contractor. It was the same philosophy. Oh, I can do that myself. And I did. And part of it was pretty fun. But would I do it again? No. Because I realized that it took me longer to build a house. So since it took me longer, it took more of my time. It also cost more because it took me longer on financing it for a longer term. I typically paid more money for the trades, okay, because if they're going to deal with a homeowner versus dealing with a general contractor that does a lot of business with them, you know, they're going to charge me a higher rate. Okay, so again, I'd be one of those 44% is, I'm not doing it again. Yeah, I had success with it, but I'm not going to do it again. All right. Any questions so far? So now let's take a quick look at expireds. So Jay had it right. You know, an expired listing are those homeowners that listed their home with a realtor for one reason or another, it didn't sell. Okay, so that contract expired. So typically, why do properties not sell? Overpriced, that's the number one thing. Okay, why else may not it's on the next page for me, but yeah, so number one is overpriced. What do you think number two is? Reasons why properties don't sell.
Dirty.
Poor condition. So number two, it was in poor condition. And then number three, I feel like this should be the Family Feud. Okay, what's the number three? Price, condition, market. was not marketed well. Okay. In this day and age, how do you not market a property well? And I still see it all the time, and it drives me crazy. Sometimes it's just the basic things in life that mean the most. So I'll see things in MLS with limited photos. There was a house that I'm showing later today. It only had pictures of the outside. I mean, it's not a big price home, but it's a $90,000 condo. Why in the world? And it was not that old. And even if it is a dump, you know, the buyers are going to see it eventually. So why, you know, if it's a dump, why waste everybody's time? You know, you can go on eBay and you would see 25 photos of a $30 bird cage. You know, but you have a $100,000 property and you have maybe just a dozen photos. Or you have photos that are dark, photos that are blurry. You know, that's poor marketing. Or you don't have, you have inaccurate information in there, where maybe there's, I've seen properties in different areas. So it wouldn't even come up on somebody's search. Or maybe they didn't mark it yes for basements. Because if you're not familiar with our Realcom forms and how people search, you can have, there's multiple questions on basements. You know, is there a basement, yes or no? Is it finished, unfinished? And so you could have a finished basement, all this stuff, but if you forgot to check yes on basement, a lot of times, you know, a seller's search criteria typically includes a basement. You know, yes basement, yes garage, 3 bedrooms, this price range, this square footage. You know, those are kind of the most important things. I've seen agents that, oops, I forgot, or I missed it. So when we talk about marketing, it's not necessarily how many thousands of dollars are you spend. You know, it could be, do you have all the correct information in the MLS? Do you have good photos in the MLS? Multiple photos. So things like that. So those are the top 3 things of why homes don't sell. With expired and withdrawn listings, the homeowners are often more motivated than before to sell. After all, they wanted to sell months ago. The challenge is to convince them that you'll do a better job than the previous agent. It goes to say here, and I have to forewarn you, it says, before making contact, however, find out for sure that the listing has actually expired or been legally withdrawn. Yes. If it hasn't, soliciting a listing agent would be a violation of NAR. Actually, yes, that's absolutely the truth. All right, so any questions on that? All right, and we're getting deeper into these. This is just kind of an overview. So they talk about caution, about Canada, because in Canada, you actually can't call homeowners after their contract expired. So that makes expires a lot more difficult. In the United States, the caution here is just make sure they're not on a do not call list. All right, moving ahead. Limiting belief. Many real estate agents make little, if any, effort to generate business from for sale by owners and expireds. And we talked about it earlier this morning because it's difficult. There's more rejection. So myth 2, you can only succeed with FSBOs and expired withdrawn listings by being aggressive and direct. Not necessarily the case. The truth is you can win with for sale by owners and expired withdrawn listings by coming from contribution, establishing trust, and staying in touch. What do we mean by coming from contribution?
Let them know what you can do for them.
Let them know what you can do for them, sure, part of it.
What you would do differently.
Part of it. So contributing, coming from contribution.
Well, let the seller know that you're doing this to help them sell their home.
Yeah, let them know that you're doing it to help them, or doing something that benefits them, okay, with maybe not getting anything in return. So demonstrating that you're just not in it for, you know, one transaction, you're in it to truly help them. It says anyone can find a comfortable way to work with for sale by owners, expireds, and withdrawn listings. You already know that they want to sell a home. Smart agents capitalize on this motivation. So if we look at, you know, all the different ones, all the different ways of finding business, okay, for instance, circle prospecting, your sphere, open houses, you know, for sale by owners and expires have the highest payoff. They have the largest percentage of, like if you recall 100 contacts in each of those groups, you would get more appointments with FSBOs and expires. Why?
Because they're motivated to say.
They're motivated. They've already raised their hands. So with an expired, you know, what's challenging about expired is they had a bad experience. So you have to overcome that challenge, you know, which is definitely you could do. Because some realize that all agents are the same. Some take a little more time, where they think all agents are the same. And so there's great objection handlers. When people are upset that their house isn't selling, I don't blame them. I mean, you want to be upset with them, not at them, but with them. And if they're saying, they don't necessarily say it that way, but I'll paraphrase it. I'll say, it sounds like you think all agents are the same. And they're like, yeah, I do. So let me ask you this, if all agents were the same, wouldn't they get all the same results? So that philosophy, if that thought is they're all the same, that means they would all get the same results. You know, I sold X amount of homes last year. The average realtor sells 6. Okay. Obviously, we're doing things different, aren't we? So it's fairly easy to get over. Anyways, going back to, let's see. So they're motivated. They have their hands up. They just have different types of objection handlers. Because FSBOs, they have a sign on their front lawn. You know they want to sell. But they don't see value in a realtor right now. Right now. That could change. This very small percentage of for sale by owners will sell. In a strong market, in a growing market, that'll grow a little bit. Not a lot, but that'll grow a little bit. That's just the way the market is. And that's okay. But there's still a lot of for sale by owners that won't be able to sell. All right. The opportunity. And this is kind of really what we're talking about. Looking at the efficiencies and similarities between for sale by owners and expireds. They're similar because we know they have their hands up, we know that they're motivated, we know that they want to sell. It's just determining the different objection handlers of why they're not using us or why they wouldn't want to use us. So, number 1, they are business-ready leads. We talked about that. Number 2, most agents prospect each group in a similar fashion, such as calling them daily, during daily lead generation time. Number 3, you have solution to their problems. Okay, the problem is they probably won't sell. They try to sell it, they couldn't. All right, like the gal that I met yesterday, and that for sale by owner is a $660,000 house. Pretty nice for sale by owner. But if she has lots of showings and she already has 2 offers and it's been on the market 2 days, she may not need a realtor.
I got a question.
Please.
How do you contact expires because it doesn't list their phone numbers on
Red X. Yeah. So you can do it 2 ways. So the question Jay had is, how do you contact expireds? So you can do it the manual way, which I don't recommend doing, but you can do it, is getting into the MLS, pulling up expireds, all the expireds, for a certain time frame. And then cross-referencing that with the pressers, which is our cross-reference index, which we have online, and you have to put in the address and a local phone number if one's available. So phone numbers are proper.
How do you spell that?
Pressers?
Russers?
Bressors, I believe. I can't remember the URL for that, but if you talk to the coaches, they'll have access because you'll need to have the login and the password.
Okay.
All right. So what's great about Bressors, again, so you can use that method, and you'll probably get about 25% of the phone numbers, depending on the area. So then people say, well, I'm missing out on 75% of the other homes, what do I do? Go to the door. And I always tell the story about Michael Perna. When he got started in real estate, because he was he was here, I think, and I was managing the Golden Banker office. And again, we did a great job on working expired listings. But sometimes some of my agents would lose out to Michael, and these agents were more experienced, sold more homes than Mike did, but they would lose out sometimes. And they're wondering, like, why is he getting these? So while they're calling on the phone, Mike's going to the door, knocking on the door and getting the business that way. So there's always opportunity. But also, again, if I were you, I would invest in Red X. But again, our scripts only work on people that are motivated. We know this group typically is motivated. Are there chances that they're not? Yeah. Sometimes people have way too much time on their hands and they say, well, if I can sell it for this high number, sure I'll sell. But it probably won't sell, and they probably won't list. So we have to, again, even though they have their hands up saying I want to sell, we still need to qualify them to see if they're truly motivated. Same thing with expireds. Sometimes people put their house on the market even with a realtor, and in hopes that with this high price. They list with a weak agent that tells them pie in the sky, like, yeah, we can get that, and they don't. So not all expireds will eventually relist. Not all expireds will you want, because they might not be motivated enough. So, but again, if they don't have a problem, we can't help them. If they're not motivated, we can't help them. All right, next page. Reason to pursue for sale by owners and expireds. It takes a little money. Okay, again, you can pretty much find all the information, resources at hand. You can make things faster and easier by subscribing to services, because there's both services for Red X does expireds and they'll do for sale by owners. Okay, for sale by owners. Where do we find for sale by owners? Look around the neighborhood. So every time you go home, take a different route. Be on the lookout. Okay, if you have family that lives in the neighborhood, say, hey, I need your help. Every time you drive by for sale by owner, take down the address, take down the phone number, and give it to me. If I sell it at home, I get you a little something. And I can give them a reason of wanting to help you. How else do we find for sale by owners? Craigslist. Yeah, online. ForSaleByOwner.com, ForSaleByOwner.com, or FSBO.com, ByOwner.com. There's all different websites out there, and Craigslist is one of them, that you can find for sale owners. And all that is free. Okay. Number two, it takes a little time. Okay, making phone calls is the fastest way to make contacts with a seller. All right, and you don't want to be confused about it happens like that. It does take time, but it's a faster way than farming. It's a faster way than circle prospecting. So number three, they're easy to find. So they're all around us. Again, there's always going to be FSBOs, there's always going to be expireds. Four, they're motivated to sell. Okay. And we don't want to assume that. We know typically they are, but we still want to use the pre-qualifying script to make sure they are qualified. All right. And sometimes, just on a side note, that pre-qualification qualification script, I don't necessarily get into right away, but before I go out there, I always want to use that script. Okay, like for instance, an expired. I know, let's say I know the area, I'm calling expireds, and I know that they're just overpriced. Okay, I call them for the first time, I get the appointment. I'm not going to get into pricing at that moment. Okay, because if I get into pricing, I tell them, well, it didn't sell because your house is overpriced. Are they really going to want to talk to me? No, they're not. So what I'm going to say is, I'm going to do research before I come out Friday at 4. I may need to call you back to get some more information. Would that be okay? Okay, so then when I call them back, I would say, based on my research, and all the homes in your area are selling, in that 300 to 325 price range. But you're asking 400, or you're asking 375. What is it that I'm missing? Okay, and I know the answer. I'm not missing anything. Okay, what could I be missing? Why do you think your house is worth, $375,000 when the average is $325? And he would have to say. And I'll ask him, so if what's the least amount you would be happy with? I want to probe what they're willing to sell for. And I want to really find out if they have high ability to sell. Yeah, I have a job transfer and I don't want to rent. They're motivated. I'm going to go out and say, no, if we can't 375, we're not selling, we don't need to move. Okay. Well, based on that, I don't think I can help you. So I'm not going to go out to that point. But I'm not going to get into that on the first call, because I really haven't earned that right. Even though I know all the information, this is the first call I've had with them. Okay, they don't necessarily know what I know. But if I follow up later, and I say, based on my research and finding everything that's sold in your area, here's what I found. Make sense? Okay, we always want to pre-qualify them to make sure that they are motivated. All right, next page, ways to win. Ways to win with FSBOs and expireds. Let's see here. Adapting to how you approach FSBOs and expireds with drawn listings to your personal style begins with understanding that there are many ways to get business from these leads. So the 6 ways, for instance, obviously getting a listing. Okay, finding a buyer for the house, help the seller buy a new home nearby, or if they're not moving nearby, refer to the seller to another agent if they're buying out of town. Meet potential buyers and seller customers by offering to host an open house. Help the seller write up business if the seller finds a buyer from negotiating commission. So these are all different ways, 6 different ways we could actually earn a commission from working with for sale by owners and expireds. Real quick, let's also talk about, briefly, we'll get into it deeper, withdrawn. What do they mean by withdrawn listings? What's a withdrawn listing?
Is that when the seller ends his contract with the selling agent?
When a seller ends the contract with the listing agent, correct. For one reason or another, the seller decided to take the house off the market. So they withdraw it into us. So there's 2 types of withdrawn listings. And we'll actually hold on to that because I think we'll get into it here in a few more pages. All right, so next page, the direct approach. Because when we started off saying that there's different ways of approaching working with FSBOs and expired, you need to find out what you're comfortable with. Diana Kokoska, who is the CEO of KW Maps, which is our internal real estate coaching department. She was an agent for many years, one of the top agents in her area. She has a very direct approach working with for sale by owners and expireds. It says direct, aggressive agents tend to want to be the first ones who call or visit a FSBO or expired. They seek to have a one-on-one conversation with them as soon as possible. For her, again, she would call them. She favors the call them first and call them often approach. When she calls them, she says first, however, she will ask for permission. Quote, do you want me to be honest with you? She goes, most people say yes, and so she grants their wish. She also goes to say here, some people say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So this is regarding her talking to expireds, especially when the expired's going to relist with the same agent. Pretty direct approach, telling them that they're, crazy, insane. She said, so I'm curious, what is your agent going to do this time that they didn't do last time?
It's great.
It is direct. But if you've asked them, if you can be honest with them, they say yes, she is. And it's true though. So you can say it softer. Definitely if there's an expired going to relist with their other agents, you want to make that point. Whether if it's a direct or indirect, you still want them thinking that because it's true. So you could say, I'm curious, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Do you think that your agent did everything they could to get your property sold? And you'll find sellers fall into 2 categories. Either they like the agent and they believe the agent did do a good job, or they dislike the agent and felt like they didn't do anything. So you can't be beaten up on the agent. Okay, you shouldn't do that anyways professionally, but you have to be careful what you say because they'll start defending the agent. Okay, if you go down the other path that maybe the agent didn't do anything they could. So I asked them the question, You know, do you felt like your last agent did everything they could to sell your home? And you'll hear, well, yes, they did. I think they did a great job. So if your agent did everything that they knew how to get your property sold, and yet it didn't sell, what possibly could they do next time to get the property sold? Fair question, right? I'm basically saying the same thing, but in a softer way. Okay? And also write this on either the top or the bottom of your page. On the bottom of your page, there's more room. Selling is not telling. Selling is not telling. It's asking a series of questions. Selling is not telling, it's asking a series of questions. So if you notice, our scripts, at least the ones I'm going to pass out to you, are all question-based. Who's in control of the conversation? The one talking or the one asking questions? The one asking questions, right? Why?
Because you're leading them down.
I'm leading them. I know where I want to go. Okay? And you don't know me, I don't know you. If I tell you something, are you going to believe me? Just because I told it to you? No. But if I ask you a question and I phrase the question properly, and you answer it,
You don't realize what happened.
yeah, well, yeah, also, when you said it, so you believe it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, using a question-based or question-based approach is really important. All right, let's see here. Oh, this is another great line too that she uses. She continues saying, if the seller said that they were thinking about interviewing other agents, she would say great, because she was there and ready to be interviewed. If they said that they already chose another agent, she would say, well, great. But if your doctor told you that you needed surgery, wouldn't you want to get a second opinion? Makes sense. She goes, this is a financial surgery you're getting into here. You got a lot of money tied up in your home. Let's get together tonight so that I can give you a second opinion. So either way, if they were going to read this with another agent, if they were going to interview other agents, she had an objection handler. And expireds and FSBOs and drawings, they have the same objections. Really, buyers, they have the same objections. The objections today are really not much different than they were 50 years ago. So if we knew the objections, you know, then why don't we learn to handle them? Why don't we learn 2, 3 different objection handlers for each main objection that we get? It's like playing a game with somebody when you know all their moves. Are you going to win? Absolutely. So that's why it's important to know, you know, and sometimes you'll get a new one. So anytime you hang up on a phone, let's say you're prospecting, and you get stuck. You know, and I've had agents, you know, it's going to happen to you. It happens to me. And I remember an agent said, yeah, you got me. All right, have a good day. Because he didn't know what to say. All right, but what he did is he wrote that down. He talked to me. He talked to other agents that he trusted that were selling lots of property. Say, hey, when you get this objection, how do you handle it? So he learned a couple different ways. So because he wanted to make sure that that didn't happen again. And we talk about being learning based. So I mean, it's going to happen. If she didn't get an appointment the first time around, Diana would continue to contact these potential customers until she did, or until they told her to stop. Taking the direct approach is tough for many because it means asking questions so they self-discover their agent didn't give them the best service rather than telling them that. Okay, now, and that can be pretty tough. Well, let's say, you know, the house should be priced at $200. Well, let's say it's priced at $250. Okay. Now, it could mean that that agent either didn't have the knowledge or didn't have the courage to tell them the truth. Okay, there's a lot of agents out there to get the listing. Okay, they might not be 100%. How should I say this? Honest with the seller. Because they figure like, well, we'll get it at their price and then we'll beat them up on price reductions once we get it listed. You know, it's very important to take the high road. If it's not going to sell, you need to tell them that. I mean, would you want a doctor that you needed to cut off your foot because you get gangrene or something, and the doctor didn't really want to hurt your feelings, so they said, it might get better. Well, you might sell it. Okay, so sometimes we gotta tell the truth. In the down market, this is how bad it was. We would have to, we were going down in prices 18% in 1 year. That was the worst year we had. So every month, prices were going down 1.5%. So when we're doing market analysis, we had to look at not when it closed, because usually we look at the close date and what that price would close for. We would have to look at, okay, what date did it go pending? Okay, and if they went pending, it was 6 months ago from that pending date, we'd go six times 1.5. Okay, so we'd have 9%. We would take 9% off of that sold price. Okay, because if that's where the market's going, you know, that's where we need to be. And that wasn't fun. But if we didn't tell our sellers the truth, it's going to expire again. Okay, so we need to be upfront with them. All right, so let's look at the indirect approach. So this gal, Jean Grubb, an agent in Texas, she took the indirect approach to working with FSBOs. I never asked for the listing, she reports. Instead, she used a modified 8x8 plan, which she completed in 2 weeks. That time frame was important because her experience taught her that most of the for sale by owners were ready to give up within 2 to 3 weeks of trying to sell the house themselves. Her strategy: make an appointment to preview the home. Number 2, preview the house, and while doing so, look for something she could help out with later. So coming from contribution. Write a note thanking the owner for allowing him to preview the house. You know, I think those are all important things to do. Act on the information she gathered. Number 2, to provide some sort of help. Number 5, show the house if she had a potential buyer. Number 6, offer to host an open house. Number 7, offer to advertise the house on her website. Number 8, send or drop off another flyer with some personalized information about the local market. Now, I think there is, you know, she can get business. Obviously, she got business from that. But if this was a for sale by owner that was motivated, not asking for the listing, you're going to lose it to another agent that did. Okay, because I think those first few things are really important. But when I'm at first, when I talk to them, my first conversation, okay, I'm looking for the listing. Okay, and if I know that they're not going to list because they just put it on the market, I still want to preview it. So when I set up the appointment, though, I'm going to ask them. So when I come over, you know, when I work with a lot of for sale by owners, a lot of times they like to see all the active competition. You know, all the homes that are currently on the market in that area, in that price range. Would you like me to bring that for you? Sure. Also, when I meet with for sale by owners, they like to know what actually sold. Okay, so they have a better idea of what similar homes to theirs are selling for. Would you like to bring that? Would you like me to bring that? Well, yeah. So what am I doing? I'm contributing, true. Also, what do we do on a listing presentation? Do we go over all the active homes? Do we go over all the properties that have sold? So I'm basically getting a listing appointment. Okay, without me asking them for the listing appointment. But I've already gotten permission to bring that over and for us to discuss that. Okay, I'm going to try and do it. And if it doesn't work out, I'm still going to go preview the property. Well, what I don't want you guys to do is miss an opportunity where you could have gotten a true listing appointment when one was there, but you didn't ask for it. So even though I believe there is a indirect approach, and I'm sure Jean does a great job, or she wouldn't be in this book, it concerns me if you're not asking for it. Because you're gonna put in 2 weeks of your time, and another agent that's going to do very similar things, but be asking for it, is going to get it before you do. Not because they are better, but because they asked for it. Make sense? Okay. Number 3, persistence. Number 3, next page, persistence. Gary Keller's quote on the left saying, people don't succeed because they naturally do what they like or what works immediately. They succeed because they don't give up. Okay, the reason I listed with an agent many years ago when I was selling for sale by owner wasn't because he was the first person I called. It was because he was the one that consistently followed up with me. He provided a packet of information. I had the disclosure statement in there for lead-based paint, seller's disclosure statement, and all these things to try and help me do it. He was coming from contribution. I found out after the fact, this was because the company he worked at the time, that was the first company I started at. So he wasn't there anymore, but I learned that he wasn't even a full-time realtor. He worked for Ford full-time. I didn't know that. Okay, and he did a fine job for him. Okay, but he didn't do anything that would make me question, oh, is he a full-time realtor? But he was consistent. He was persistent. All right, and this graph here says basically that our research shows that 50% of agents will not follow up after the first week. Okay. Most agents won't call the first time. So let's take a step back and be honest. Most agents won't call physicals. Okay, the ones that do may just make one call. So if you're following up, your competition is dwindling quickly. That typically after the 4th week, no one's following up with them. And if you are, you have obviously a high chance of getting that. Make sense? And so it's also one of the best ways to follow up is to place all for sale by owners on a systematic marketing action plan such as 8x8. Okay, you can find this also on mykw.com. And also in the back of the book, there's some suggestions on what to have in that 8x8. But it's, again, setting up a systematic plan of how you're going to talk to these people. Barriers. Okay, what's stopping people from this? This is, these can be, or there can be reluctance to making calls. But once you make a habit out of it, making the calls becomes easier. It's just like anything. It's just like if you're going to have a workout routine. It's tough to get started. The analogy of picking up a semi-truck tire. I mean, a semi-truck tire weighs hundreds of pounds. It's really hard to pick up. But once you've picked it up and you start rolling it and you have momentum, it's pretty easy to keep that going, isn't it? It doesn't take a lot of effort. Okay, most of the effort went into picking it up in that first few pushes. All right, pretty much like anything in life, once it's a habit, okay? I mean, there was times when I was going to the gym, obviously not now, that I felt odd not going to the gym because it was a habit. And then I made a habit of not going. So habits can be positive, habits can be negative. Okay? But again, it takes time to make that habit. Next page, mindset. All right, so we need to have a realistic expectation when we're calling for sale by owners and expireds. Not everyone is going to accept your offer of assistance. Okay, for one reason or another, they're not all going to be thrilled that you called and saying, how soon can you come over? It's a numbers game. It says keep track of numbers of your calls, the numbers of your conversations, your appointments, how many listings you get. So you're going to start to see a trend that you'll know, okay, every 10 for sale by owners I talk to, I get one appointment. Every 2 appointments I go on, I get one listing. You're going to start, if you're keeping track of your numbers, you're going to start seeing your business grow. You're also going to see where your weaknesses are. So, but without keeping track of your numbers, you're not going to know where you need to spend your time to help grow your business, where you need to spend your time to increase your skill level without knowing what your numbers are. Don't let rejection get you down. Don't worry when you don't get an appointment. It's not that the homeowner doesn't like you. I mean, honestly, they don't know who you are. They've never seen you. The person's just not interested in what you're offering at that present time. Top agents get rejected every day. So will you. Realize that this is a numbers game. You'll probably likely hear plenty of no's before you get to yes. But if you stick with it, you'll get there. Remember that FSBOs may very well be, I don't need you. Only as we talk about over time, that certainly changes. Any questions so far? All right, next page. We're talking a little bit more about coming from contribution. Okay, and what that means is don't make a sales pitch based on your need to close a transaction or how good you know you are. Again, selling is not telling. Okay, they don't want to hear a sales pitch. You want to ask questions. Because asking questions now takes it from, because when we're telling them stuff, it's really about who, them or us. Us, how good we are, how many sales we've closed, you know, whatever it is. It's typically we're trying to sell them on something, it's about us. But when we're asking them questions, okay, that turns things, doesn't it? Now it's about them. What are their needs? What are their wants? What are they trying to accomplish? Okay. So again, coming from contribution. All right. There are things to offer that will demonstrate to a prospect how you can help them. Offer your expertise, your knowledge of the market, tips for selling a home, tips on staging. My last for sale by owner, and it was a really short period of time from my conversations with them to listing the property and actually selling the property, getting it sold. That was fun. But my first coming from contribution was I offered her a lockbox. I offered her one of my lockboxes. She was going out of town. The reason she was moving is she got reacquainted with a high school friend at a class reunion like the year before, and things went well. She was selling her house in South Lyon, moving down to Atlanta to be with him. So the phone number on the sign was his number down in Atlanta. And she was going down there for like a week. I'm like, well, how are you going to show the property? And she goes, well, you know, I don't know. Because she was letting agents show the property. I'm like, well, if you want, I can let you borrow one of my lock boxes. She was like, she would do that? I'm like, yeah, let me just get one from the car. Something very, very basic. But again, it was just, it wasn't a sales pitch. I just met her. I just pulled up to her door. She was in the garage and probably getting out of her car because I listed the property down the street. So she didn't know who I was, but it was something small. So it started a conversation. Knowing the script, I started asking questions. And she goes, well, just talk to my boyfriend. He's handling everything. I'm like, great. He actually called me before I called him. So it was probably based on, hey, I met this guy, he's pretty nice, give him a call. So my first time, the next time I met with her, when she was back from Atlanta, I had sent all the documents to them when she was still down there. When I came for what I thought was the listing presentation, she actually had everything already signed. So that was the second time I met with her. It sold a couple weeks later. Cash deal closed a couple weeks after that. Okay. FSBO stands for Source of Business Opportunity. Yeah. Okay. And then guys, that was like 2 months. A $360,000 sale, full commission. That's fun. Okay. Also, I helped her get down to Atlanta. All right. Let's see here. Next page here. Steps for working with FSBOs. There are 6 things you need to do to prepare to work with FSBOs. Know what you're going to say, which is critical. Prepare materials to give them. Create an 8x8 customized for FSBOs. Set your goals. Find them. Organize your information in each listing. Getting started, the biggest thing you can do, and the most important thing is number 1. Know what you're going to say. Because most agents that are afraid to call, okay, it's because they don't know what to say. But if I would call you at 3 in the morning, Jay, and say, Jay, give me your FSBO script, and you were able to wake up out of that and just give it to me, how well do you know that? And that's internalized. Okay, if you know something that well, you're going to want to call FSBOs because you're excited about it. You know what to say. You know what you can do to help them. Okay, that's the big key. All right, we also know, and we talked about on our first session, there's 3 different ways we can communicate communicate, or 3 different ways of communicating with people. Remember, there's our body language, right? What's the next one?
Tone.
Our tonality. Okay, what's the last one? Body language, tonality, and words. Okay, so knowing what to say, we're focusing on the words. Okay, but out of those 3, what's the least effective way of actually communicating with somebody? The words. It's 7%. 7% of the communication is actually the words that we use. So 58% is body language, 35% is tonality. So there was an instructor named Lloyd, around for years, a great trainer based out of Detroit, one of the best real estate trainers out there. And he had this sentence that really, made it very clear to me. I didn't say he kissed her. How many different ways can we say I didn't say he kissed her? Using the same words. I didn't say he kissed her. 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 Same words, different meanings. Okay, so again, it goes back to body language and tonality. So when we're learning what to say, the first step, is like you have to learn to crawl before you can run. If you're learning music, you got to learn the chords, or whatever music, but you got to learn the basics, and that sometimes gets annoying. But you have to do that to get to these other parts. But there's more to it than just the words, and we'll get into that shortly. All right, let's see here. On this page here, Betty Bessemer in Houston, Texas, knows what to say when she works with FSBOs and expirers. She knows the most common objections and how to answer them. Because she knows what to say, Betty is good at filtering prospects on her initial phone call. She sets appointments with only the best leads, and if Betty wants to have someone as a customer, she converts the lead to a customer 85 to 90% of the time when she has her consultation appointment. So when it talks about filtering, she is good at filtering her prospects. That means she's pre-qualifying. She's not spending her time with those that aren't motivated. Okay? Because if she was going out to every FSBO, every expired, okay, she wouldn't get an 85 to 90% ratio. It would be much lower than that. As a newer agent, I probably wouldn't, I would still always use the pre-qualification, okay? But even though there might not that be motivated, okay, it still might not hurt to go out there, especially as a new agent, and meet them, just to get experience. Okay, as your skills increase, you're going to be pre-qualifying harder. Makes sense? Because that's going to give you time in front of people. Number 2, prepare materials to give them, such as top 10 mistakes home sellers make. So there's different things, and also you can find that on different resources on mykw.com. Next page talks about sample home selling tips on agent sites. Again, coming from contribution. Next page is a for sale by owner packet. So it's a checklist of what you can include in that. And again, there's, I think most of these are in the back where you can customize them. Use that as an example. I think this is never a bad idea. However, I think the most important is calling them and calling them often. Okay? So if I had, you don't want to spend all your time on passively working the FSBOs versus actively working on the FSBOs. Because you have the best packet out there in town, but if you're not contacting on a regular basis, you're not going to get business. They're not going to call you just because of your packet. It's just something extra that puts you over the top, but you need to talk to them first. Create an 8x8 customized for FSBOs. So for instance, this example here, touch 1 is previewing the property and leave a FSBO the packet or pre-listing packet. Again, if you don't have a FSBO packet or pre-listing packet, preview the property. That's the most important part. Looking at the house, talking to the seller. Touches 2 and 3 send either a postcard or letter for each touch and call after one of the mailings. Okay. My touch two is calling them back, depending on where they're at in the process, calling them back, a few days later, no more than a week later. Okay, FSBOs, well, if they're motivated, you're going to want to be talking to them on a weekly basis. Monday's always a good day of following up with FSBOs. Why? What could they have been doing on a Sunday? Having an open house. Okay, so they're either going to be excited or disappointed that no one came to the open house. So Monday's usually a pretty good day of following up with FSBOs. Okay. Touch 4, make a telephone call. Touch 5 and 7, send different postcards or letters. Touch 8, make a telephone call. So in this 8x8, there's really just 3, one preview and 2 other conversations, where I think you need to be having, if they're qualified and motivated, you want to be having more conversations with. Will this get you business? Absolutely. Talking on a more regular basis, will that get you more business? Absolutely. It also gives an example here of what Gene River used on his postcards. So he had an 8x8 postcard mailing. So every few days, the first postcard was on pricing, information on pricing. Second postcard, importance of the condition of the home. So it could have tips maybe on staging or cleaning things up, decluttering. Postcard 3 is about competition and why that's important. So he had this whole list of things, and what he was thinking is that as a for-sale by owner, what's my thought process? What am I going through? So he would try and come up with things to help them. And his last one is, what do I do now? So if they're on his 8x8, down to the last one, they still on the market, obviously that last one is talking about how they can successfully help them get their property sold. Number 4, set your goals. So in going through and finding ways of working with FSBOs and expires, you really need a goal. How many FSBOs, how many expires do you want to be talking to on a regular basis? Again, because if you don't know, any number will do. But if you have a goal that you want a certain percentage of your business coming from FSBOs and expires, and a certain percentage of your contacts should be coming from them too. Number 5 on the next page, find them. Many ways to find people that are selling their homes on their own. So we talked a little bit about driving around, all the different websites, services that you can pay for to find them. Number 6, organize your information on each listing. Gather all the information you need on each FSBO and have it ready before you start making calls. Get a tax sheet, an MLS history. All that is good. Sometimes you can get caught up in too much, all right, where you're spending all this time versus if you're just having a conversation. So what I do is, my lead follow system is pretty basic. And eventually I'll probably get into having it on Top Producer or on myQ.com on eEdge. But right now I want all my leads in front of me on a regular basis. So I have a 3-ring binder. It's going to be a 2.5-inch, 3-inch 3-ring binder. And I got 2 sets of tabs in there. The first set of tabs is 1 through 31. So those represent the days of the week. The second set of tabs that I bought is January through December. So if I know, if I get a FSBO sheet and it's off of Zillow, I'm going to print that off. Okay, I'll probably print off PRD and I'll staple it so I have their names, maybe when they bought it, so I have some information. I'm going to call them. And then if I don't contact them, so today's the 22nd?
7.
Awful. All right, today's the 27th, so I'm going to put that under 28. I'll probably leave that one out here, and I'll try it a few times. I won't leave one message, but I'll try to call them a few times today. And then I'll put it under the 28 tab, okay, to call them tomorrow. Do the same routine. Then I move that, and I'll contact them. I'll call them the next day. Okay, so I keep moving that under the correct tab. If I'm talking to maybe someone in my sphere that's looking to sell 6 months from now, all right, I'm going to call them probably in a couple months, 3 months tops. So let's say we're end of June, so I'll probably put them under the August tab. So So now, so when we get to August, I see all my calls for August, I'll follow up with them. So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't get lost in the computer. It's with me wherever I go. Okay, it's pretty basic. Okay, that's how I organize my information. Do it how you choose. For me, I like to keep it with the KISS method. Familiar with the KISS method? Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Stupid.
Salesperson.
Oh.
Keep it simple, salesperson. So, all right. And then right here. All right, next couple pages. I got page 36. Your numbers could be different. So it talks about take action. Okay. My 36 is your 32? Okay. So take action. Obviously, now that you're prepared to call FSBOs, there's 3 things you need to do. Of course, make a contact, give them a call, record what happens, try and go to their house for either the preview or the listing presentation. Again, I'm always looking for the listing presentation. Okay. So if I made a goal that I just want to find previews, guess what I want to find? Previews. If I'm making a goal that I'm looking to find listings, what am I more likely to find? Listings. What you focus on expands, which is a bold law. So I want to focus on finding listings. And if I can't get the listing, then I'll certainly try and get the preview. Okay, but I'm not looking for listings for next month. I'm looking for listings people that can buy and sell today. Okay? I'm going to follow up with it if they're not ready today. I really want you to focus on people that are doing business now. All right, breaking down the make contact. Top agents typically make a phone call as their first contact. Calling gets you the best and fastest results. Alternatives are to send something in the mail. I don't recommend doing, or knocking on the door. Dick Dillingham, Dean of Keller Williams University, faculty, talks about feeling uncomfortable calling FSBOs. When he realized he could offer assistance by sending information in the mail, it opened up a new and valuable prospecting strategy for him. The challenge is how many people read their mail from people they don't know. It's going to be limited. Could you get business from it? Sure. Could you send them something then call? Yeah. If you plan on just mailing them something and not calling, I wouldn't do it. All right. Getting ready. When you're making phone calls, have the information on all FSBOs that you want to contact in front of you. Obviously, you need that information. Warm up by saying affirmations, chanting, or rehearsing your scripts. We should be doing that every morning. Role playing with other agents. Number 3, put a do not disturb sign on your door. So this is focused lead generation time. Next point, just do it. You're going to start calling and remembering a few important pointers. As Diana Kokoska always reminds us, come from contribution, ask how you can help them, offer helpful information. Also, ask some questions and access their concerns and needs. Again, we're looking to solve a problem. Really, we're looking to solve a problem they don't know they have. That's the challenge. Learn as much you can about their situation. Be the answers to their problems. All right, we're going to skip the script part because we're going to go over that. I have some others that I want to hand out to you. But on here, there's some great scripts. And as a productivity coach, I didn't care what script you used, just as long as you're using them. And using one that was proven to get you business. That's the key. Okay, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense just coming up with your own script that you don't know if it's going to be successful or not. So use this script. Use the script that I handed to you. The scripts that I'm handing to you are the scripts that Chris Heller used to build his business. You know it works. You wouldn't be a CEO of Keller Williams if you didn't. So it talks about there's a script for setting an appointment. There's a script about how you can have a win-win relationship. Additional questions. When you don't get an appointment, what do you need to do? We're delivering a FSBO packet. Objection handlers about not paying a commission. Follow-up calls. So there's a ton of scripts in here. Let's let's see here, talking to the for sale by owners about the 4 kinds of buyers that are out there. And then on the next page after that, after the scripts, where it says try again. Okay, so this is lead follow-up. It's going to come from the first call. It's going to come from lead follow-up. 70 to 80% of your business. Okay, so if we're just making a call, nothing after that, we're only getting 30% of what we could be getting if we did the lead follow-up. So we want to be looking for the non-business, but also being realistic, having expectations that we're probably going to have to follow up with these people. Okay, so there's also some information here, some scripts here on how to follow up with them. Record what happens. So after you get off a call, jot down some notes. So when you talk to the homeowner the next time, you know, let's not be confused. Sometimes our egos wants to think they remember us. They typically don't remember us. So sometimes I'll call the same person and use the same script on it. Because they don't remember the first call. Okay, if I had an in-depth conversation with them, I'll bring some of those things up. Say, oh, we talked last week, you know, I'll remind them of the conversation. Okay, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't record what happened, if I wasn't taking good notes. And again, when I'm taking notes, I'm looking for what problem they may have, what I can do to help them grow, or help them achieve their goal. Going to the house, again, whether if it's a preview or a listing presentation, that's a key component. And again, I like to go into the house even if I can't get the listing appointment, because you're more memorable that way. You also get more of a chance to talk to them, to show them who you are, and it's a lot easier to follow up once you have a face-to-face appointment. So under follow-up has 4 relatively simple steps. 1, put all your leads in a database with pertinent information on the action you took and what the next steps are. So for me, my database is that simple, a reminder. We have the 2 sets of tabs, 1 to 31, and then January through December. 2, implement an 8x8, making sure at least 3 of your touches are phone calls. I would be calling a lot more than that. Okay. I mean, your business will increase dramatically making more than just 3 calls. But certainly there's lots of tools on the edge that you can use to enhance this. So they'll probably, for me, they'll be getting like an email on an 8x8 and a phone call every single week. 3, send a thank you note for any referrals you get. Gift certificates are a good way to say thank you and encourage for some others to send me the names of the buyers who don't make an offer on their home. So we didn't cover that point, but in working with for sale by owners, they're coming across other buyers. So I asked them, saying, you know, if any of these buyers, you know, your home doesn't meet their needs, you know, I'd be happy to work with them. All right, 4, follow up until they list or sell. Be the last one still calling, and the listing is yours. So again, it goes from consistency. All right, steps with working with expireds and withdrawn listings. So we started the conversation earlier, there's 2 types of withdrawals. Are you familiar with that? So there's conditional, very good. There's conditional and unconditional. What's the difference? So let's think about it. One's conditional.
That's when the contract ends.
Yeah. So conditional means we're taking it out the MLS, but there's still an underlying exclusive right to sell. We still have a contract on that property. So it's a conditional withdrawn. It's withdrawn, but there's conditions, meaning our contract's still in effect. All right. Then there's unconditional. So unconditional would mean what?
Totally changed their minds. I'm not interested.
They're not interested. Well, not that they're not interested, because sometimes last year I had an unconditional where I fired her. Okay, I fired the seller. Right? The reason I fired the seller is because I never had a seller cancel so many showings. Okay, and also she wasn't being realistic on the price. Even though we had the conversation up front, sometimes sellers have selective memory. Okay, and I wasn't going to be able to help her. So it was mutual. Okay, that was an unconditional withdrawal. So she could list it with somebody else. Okay. So we can call unconditional withdrawals. We can't call conditional withdrawals. Why?
They're still on the contract.
You're still under contract, yeah. So it's unethical that we're interfering with their contract. All right. So preparing, very similar process to the 4 step owners we talked about. Knowing what you're going to say, prepare materials to give them, create 8x8 customized for expireds, set your goals, find them. Everything that we did for FSBOs, just slightly different than we're looking for expireds now. All right. Next page, prepare materials to give them. Very similar to the 4 sell by owners. We want to create a packet of information we get in their hands. But obviously, instead of focusing on 4 sell by owners, we're focusing on expireds and giving them hope, putting in testimonials, maybe from some other people that we work with. Better yet, if they're expireds, those are even better testimonials. It says you would probably use an expired packet when you don't have a listing appointment, and you'd use a pre-listing packet once you have a scheduling appointment. So they are slightly different. But many agents will drop this off in the door or mail it to them. Get something in their hand right away. Okay, here's an example of an 8x8 customized for expireds. Day 1, call them and hand deliver an expired packet. There you go. Day 2, make a telephone call. Day 3, send a postcard or letter. Day 4, make a telephone call. Day 5, send a marketing statistic or special report. Day 6, make a telephone call. Okay, so there's a lot more calls in a shorter period of time than expireds, because we know expireds relist a lot faster than 4 sale owners typically list. Okay. Number 4, set your goals. As an example here, it says for every 10 conversations, 1 to 3 appointments is a good goal. Of the 10 people you talk with, 1 to 2 people will be unrealistic about price. Just there's no way they're going to get the price they want. 2 to 4 will stay with the same agent. 1 to 2 will be people you don't want to do business with. Okay, 1 to 3 will set an appointment with you. So that is a good goal to have. Number 5, find them. Again, you can pull it off manually, or you can have a service for RedX, and they can do that for you. Check the do not call list, organize your information in each listing. So for me, I'll take the old listing, okay, public records, and I use that. So I staple that together, 3-hole punch it, and that goes in my binder for people that I'm working with, people I need to follow up with. Take action. Make contact, record what happens, go to their house. Again, same things as for sale by owners. So here's some scripts, very similar to the for sale by owners, but obviously targeted towards expireds. And we'll get into these scripts here in a couple of minutes. Going to it's my page 55. But it starts off, leave messages. It's right before the note page. What page is that for you guys? 50, okay, page 50. So record what happens, same thing with expireds, go to their house, follow up. Follow up has 3 relatively simple steps. Drop off the expired packet, especially if you don't get to talk to the homeowner. Number 2, put all your leads in a database. Number 3, implement the 8x8. Again, it is the same. Tony DeCello, who's coach for the Agents of Success, says follow up, follow up, follow up. Keep following up until they list or sell. All right, last section here, putting it all together. Ahas. Any ahas and any takeaways from today's class? No ahas, nothing new?
I didn't know you couldn't call conditional withdrawals.
You can call unconditional withdrawals.
Yeah.
Not
I
conditional.
didn't know that you couldn't call conditional.
Oh, you didn't know that you couldn't call. Okay, well, good. That's a good aha. It'll keep you We'll keep you licensed, out of trouble, absolutely, okay. Other ahas. I don't think I did a very good job, if you guys don't have any ahas here.
I came in thinking, it's not my cup of tea, calling FSBOs are expired, but it's such an opportunity,
Perfect,
such an opportunity.
thank you, yes, make today worth it, for me.
Okay, good.
It truly is, because if I'm not doing this, if I'm not gonna get it, no one likes rejection, so it is harder. But if I don't do it, they're gonna end up with an agent that may not be as caring, as honest as I am. So they could end up with a bad agent and lose money. That's my mindset, my mindset now. It wasn't that originally, especially with FSBO. It's like, wait a minute, if they can sell it on their own, why would they ever want to list with me? Okay, but the reality is, I can net them more money. We didn't get into that conversation yet. I can typically net them more money.
Okay, what do we do if we call somebody and they say, oh yeah, I've already talked to so-and-so from your office?
Great. You know, all agents have a different plan of how to get homes sold. I would certainly like to talk to you and, you know, get together and show you how I sell homes. So it's just because somebody has an appointment, doesn't mean, if they're gonna say, oh, I'm going to list with somebody in your office, you know, that's great, they'll do a great job for you. Okay, if they say, I'm gonna list with some person from ABC Realty, I said, okay, well, you know, I would get into the script about getting a second opinion.
Right, but what I heard you say is even if they say they're talking to somebody from the very same office, it's okay for us to pursue them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because one, we're all independent contractors. Where if they say I'm listing with so-and-so,
That's totally different.
that is totally different, correct. If they were listing with somebody outside of this company, I would still go after it. Say, great, I'm glad I talked to you. You know, it's important to get a second opinion. It only takes me 15 minutes to show you how we do things differently, how we enable to net you more money. Okay? I mean, this is probably one of the largest financial decisions you'll make. Is it worth just 15 minutes of your time to see if we might be able to help you? So it goes back to that second opinion. If you're having surgery, wouldn't you want a second opinion? So, but again, if they're saying, oh, I'm listening with Jay, he's coming over later today, I'd say, oh, Jay's a great guy, he'll take care of you. If Jay was from ABC Realty, my script would be different. Okay? It's just, I think, the right thing to do. All right. So how do we change our mindset? Because at first, with for sale by owners, we would think, wait a minute, if a seller can sell their home and not pay a commission, you know, why would they want to use us? How can we typically net sellers more money? Why do more agents list their home? You know, 90% of the 90% of the sellers list homes with realtors versus doing it on their own.
Because we want to save our money over time, because the for sale by owners may not be able to sell a house fast enough and you're actually losing money.
Correct. So we could possibly get their home sold quicker than they could themselves. Okay, why else? Let's go back to the first question, because I asked you a couple questions there. Let's go back to the first question. How is it possible that we can net them more money?
More exposure.
More exposure. So what does that mean, more exposure? What does that mean to them? How does that relate? Because you're exactly right, but how does that relate to netting them more money?
Okay, there's more buyers to compete for their house.
Yeah, it's a supply and demand. So if we're able to expose your home to more potential buyers, okay, it's real estate is a supply and demand business. You know, we may be able to get you more money for your house doing it yourself. I mean, I always love analogies. So let's say you were going to, I mean, you look at the cars. If you were to buy a used car, and you were to go, so I would typically look at what they're driving as I'm walking up to their house, and they say they have like a Taurus. If you were to go buy a used Taurus, you know, would you pay the same amount, all things being equal, to a private party than you would at a dealer? No, you wouldn't. Why?
Because you expect to save on the commission.
You expect to save on the commission, that's part of it. Why else? Yeah, but I really don't care about that, but you're absolutely right. What I care about, a dealer should be reputable, you know, is there if there's problems, you know, may be able to provide a warranty, can make financing easier, they know the paperwork. It's a little more safer, more comfortable, because I'm dealing with a professional typically. All right. So, you're right, so people that go, if I was gonna buy a used car, yeah, I mean, I would love to save money. But people going to a dealer expect to pay retail. There's an expectation. If I'm buying it, Jay has this Explorer, and I like it, I'm not expecting to pay retail when I'm buying it from a private party. Right? Same thing with real estate sales. Okay, what kind of buyers shop FSBOs?
Yeah, looking for a discount.
They're looking for a discount.
Okay.
Correct. So wait a minute now. The seller wants to sell it to save the commission. The buyer wants to buy it to save the commission. How much are they really saving? It's very little, if any. All right. So I feel I can typically net them more money. Typically, because and I always say typically. Just because the gal that I talked to yesterday, she may get full retail for her house, but it's gorgeous. There's not a whole lot of other homes available. She may do it, but that is such a small percentage of buyers out there. Like the house that I sold earlier this year in South London, it was also gorgeous. It showed like a model home. You know, but the exposure they had was on Zillow. You know, that's, you know, not a whole lot versus the exposure we can give them. So there's so much more on that once you realize that, wait a minute, you know, we can't offer them more than they can do it themselves. And if we're able to convey that to them by asking questions, okay, we're able to listen to help them. Make sense?
Can you just go into a little bit more depth about that exposure? How do I explain that to, Zillow versus what we do?
Sure. Part of the exposure that we provide is actually, the biggest part is through our multiple listing service. So we're going to list your home, we're going to put it in what's called the MLS, okay, and that's going to notify thousands of other agents out there about your property. Basically, I have to market your property to two different segments. I first have to market it to the general population, you know, buyers out there looking for your home, and here's how we do this, so I get into that detail. And I also market your home to the top agents, buyers agents out there, okay? Because I want to get them excited about your home and have them bring in their buyers. So when we're able to do that, you have thousands of agents working to sell your home. Versus, you have it on Zillow, you have one person trying to sell the home. And let's be honest, if you were to list your home with a realtor, would you want to list with a realtor that sold, you know, thousands of homes, or just an agent that's sold? I'm using the analogy about them, if they maybe did it before, they sold one home, or would you want to hire an agent that sold one home? Because that's who they're hiring themselves. Okay, so that's part of their exposure. And we get into a little bit more detail about them, that once it's in MLS, it goes to thousands of other websites out there. It also goes to the top 3, which is Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. So those are the 3 largest website portals out there. It also goes to things like AOL Real Estate. And on a side note, on our listing packet, there's a sheet of all these colorful logos that it goes on. Okay? And your home will also go on pretty much every realtor's website out there because of what we call IDX, which we share everyone's listings. Okay? That type of exposure will generate more people looking at your home than you could yourself. Okay? All right.
Thanks.
My pleasure. Other questions? Let's get into the script real quick. We've got about 10 minutes left. I really want to get into some of the dialogues here. You guys want to cover FSBO first or expireds?
This goes on top.
FSBO. Perfect. All right. So this is the basic script. And again, 7% of the communication is going to be coming from these words. But I guarantee you, when you look at this, you're going to say, oh, this is pretty basic. I don't see how this would work. I've heard it for the last 15 years, 16 years, I've been working with agents. Also, I've had the good fortune of taking some agents with me to what's called a productivity school, and where we would spend 4 days just on these scripts. We really dissect every embedded commands. We look into upswings, we look into downswings, and every agent that's come out of that program has a different feeling about these scripts. Okay, so they're not as basic as they first appear. All right, so on the script. Hi, this is Lloyd with Keller Williams. I'm calling about the home for sale. And the ... basically means for you to pause. Okay, is this the owner? So what's upswing versus a downswing?
Is this the owner?
Very good. Versus, that was an upswing. Is this the owner? Is this the owner?
Bill collector.
Tell me more.
Ella, is this the owner? Sounds round.
Okay. Part of that's tone, because you still have a downswing, you still have a positive tone. So, and it's kind of funny, when you ask somebody a question and they're not sure of the answer, they'll typically answer it with an upswing. Because they're uncertain. So remember as a kid, or if you have children, how you talk to your kids. Do you ask them, did you clean your room? Did you clean your room? It's really not a question, is it? It's a command. So upswing causes doubt, causes questions. It was just a couple days ago. I can't remember what was said, but Big Bang Theory. Anyone ever watch that? And I don't know their names. Sheldon is the taller guy, right?
Yeah.
He was asking his other roommate a question in his room. This is when, I don't know if you saw the episode, when they first met and he was interviewing to be his roommate. And so Sheldon had asked him a question and he answered, but he answered with an upswing. He goes, was that a question or are you telling me that? He goes, I'm telling you that. Again, it's another upswing. So when we end an upswing, that's really causes doubt. So we know we're unsure. Mothers, fathers, teachers, police officers, okay, they know downswings very well. Police officer pulls you over. Do you know how fast you were going? Do you know how fast you were going? Okay? So there's certain times you want to use upswings, there's certain times you want to use downswings. All right. I'm doing a survey of all the for sale things. You don't want to see these posts. I'm doing a survey of all the for sale by owners in the area, and I was wondering. So this is something that you can switch out. You know, I work with a lot of for sale by owners in the area, and I was just wondering, you know, if you sold this home, where would you go next? Some people don't like the survey, but it was really designed that supposedly surveys aren't included in the do not call list. So that's why they say survey. So the first question, if you sold this home, where would you go next? And so in the brackets is their response. Okay, and what we want to do here, right, to the right of this, write down repeat and approve. So we're going to repeat what they said. So if you sold this home, where would you go next? And they say, well, I'm going out to LA. My response is, LA? Well, that's exciting. Why am I repeating?
You heard him.
Prove I heard. Sometimes, well, this is pretty basic, but if they went to other things, prove I understood them. Okay, because I can hear something and maybe not quite get what they said, but if I say it back to them, they say, well, no. Then they explain it more in depth. But they also know I'm listening. Approval. I mean, that's the one thing that all human beings need is approval. And there's a big difference between saying that they're right and giving approval. For instance, what we call expireds, expireds can be pretty upset, especially they thought they could get their house sold, the other agent made promises, 6 months later, it's still not sold. They have all these agents that are calling them now to list their property, they can be pretty upset. Okay, and they may not think that highly of agents. I can still give them approval without saying you're right. All agents are idiots. I can appreciate that. I repeat, oh, you think all agents are idiots? I can definitely appreciate that. How do you feel? Or how do you think I feel? I gotta work with these guys. Sometimes I make them laugh, so depending on the person, but also I'm not attached to it. So if he's upset with me, I'm gonna be upset with him, not at him. Okay, and I can appreciate where he's coming from, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're right, all agents are idiots. Okay, so there's a big difference of approval versus saying that they're right. So next question, how soon do you have to be there? So again, we want to find out what their timelines are. Oh, 3 months, that's fantastic. How would you rate your motivation to move on a scale of 1 to 10? And you say, well, we're about a 5. 5, well, good for you. I would ask, and these are kind of the minimum questions. There's a lot of other questions I add to this. So for instance, they'd say, 5. Oh, 5, good for you. So what would make you a 10? I want to dig deeper on why they think they're just a 5. And a lot of times homeowners don't want you to know how motivated they are because they're afraid you're going to use that against them. So, but I do want to dig deeper to find out, are they interested? So, and here, so I could soften this, saying, I was driving by, I saw the sign in your front yard. What other methods are you using for marketing your home? Okay, so I'm still asking the question, but I'm making it more of a conversation. How do you determine your sales price? And here you want to put smile next to number 5. Because that question can be, if it's not in the correct tone, it can come off pretty harsh. Because they're going to feel like you're attacking them. How'd you come up with that price? So you don't want to wrinkle your nose, you want to say it with a smile. So are you prepared to adjust your price down? So I'm using my tone. And typically when I'm trying to change my tone, I also change my body language. And a lot of times you're going to do a downswing. I got to bend down, force my arm down, just for a way of me making sure I'm doing a downswing, not an upswing. So are you prepared to adjust your price down when working with a buyer? Repeat, approve. So why did you decide to sell yourself? And I'm going to start pointing at myself rather than list with a real estate agent. So I'm actually, even though I'm on the phone, at the end of it, I'm pointing to myself, shaking my head, yes. Why did you decide to sell yourself rather than, I don't care, rather than list with a real estate agent? And they say save the commission. No, save the commission. Good for you. And that could kind of, they might not be, that might catch them off guard because so many agents are calling them, telling them they're crazy to sell themselves, that agents can do a better job, and I'll say, hey, save the commission, well, good for you. Sometimes if I'm in a deeper conversation, I'll take it another level. If I had to sell my home and I thought I could sell it without paying a commission, I'll do the same thing. The reality, I did. And then I asked the next question. So now I'm on their side. If you were to list, which agent would you list with? And here you can do an upswing. Well, how'd you have to pick that agent? I'm never going to say anything derogatory, but in their mind, what did I just do?
Doubt.
Pardon me? Doubt, yeah. Drops of doubt, we call it. And they may say, well, is that wrong? Oh, no. And then I ask the next question. I'm never going to say anything derogatory, but I am going to have doubts of doubt, or drops of doubt. If you were to list, what would you expect that agent to do to get your home sold? It's called this Friday Chops. Get your home sold. So how much time will it take before you consider, okay guys, interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? So when we're on the phone, can we hear somebody smiling?
Yes.
You can't see it, but it changes their tone. Just as, so their body language of smiling changes their tone. Me with the pointing and the shaking head, no, it changes the tone. So number 12 is similar but different. So 11 was how much time it'll take. 12, what has to happen before you'll consider having a powerful agent like myself for the job of selling your home. Are you familiar with that means I use to sell homes? You want to make sure that's a downswing, not an upswing. What would be the best time to show you? Monday or Tuesday at 4. So I'm giving them, it's a close, it's alternative close, meaning whatever option they choose is fine by me. Okay, what would be the best time to show you? Monday or Tuesday at 4. So that's the basic script. These are, again, you're going to ask probably twice as many questions as what you have here. And it's getting down to, like for instance, I say, we're moving on to LA. A sub-question there is great. We're going out to LA, that's exciting. What's taking out to LA? Oh, I have a job transfer. Oh, you have a job transfer, good for you. So is that a promotion or, so I'm getting down to why they're really moving. The FSBO yesterday, he's getting a new job, moving down to North Carolina. The reason he got the new job is so he can have more time at home. Okay, that's the motivation, is family time. Okay, so I wouldn't know that if I didn't ask more questions. So number 2, how soon do you have to be there? 3 months. So do you want to have your home sold in 3 months? And what would happen if it wasn't sold by then? Again, so there's pretty much every question you have, you can dig a little bit deeper. You don't need to on some of them, but some you do, especially the ones that come to motivation. Make sense? Okay. So what part of this is all about how great we are? How many homes we sold? Why they should listen to us? Why they can't do it themselves? Okay. So on our or one of the things that we had at Keller Williams on the wall, but staying curiosity. You'll hear that a lot in a lot of different classes. Staying curiosity. And it can pretty much work with everything. Anytime I get into with my young girls, I want to sometimes be a little quick to come to judgment. Stay in curiosity. Find out. Ask questions first. So I can see something and assume something happened, and maybe it wasn't that. So I usually put my foot in my mouth a lot if I assume things too quick. So part of this is being curious. Part of it is finding out. I can't help them if I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. And that's what the script does. Make sense? And you'll notice these are very similar questions to what you see on the scripts that you have through 36-12-3. So, but they're all designed to get you an appointment. They're all designed to find out what the motivation is. All right. Questions? Okay, so these scripts you'll be using, in here, working with Debbie, working with Annette, in your productivity, coaching sessions. It's really the cornerstone of all the scripts. Any other questions from this morning? Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully you got something to grow your business on, something to take action on. And that's also another great thing too, guys. Sometimes as new agents, depending on the personality style, there's some personality styles that'll take it and they'll just run with it. There's others, kind of more like me, that's more of that analytical, that C personality style where you don't want to be wrong with it. And sometimes that's analysis to paralysis. Just start using it. Okay? Just say, you know what, I'm just going to practice these this week. Okay? But you can practice them with your fellow colleagues, which is also good to do. I would do some time with that, but also practice it with real people. Because when you practice with your fellow colleague, you are going to get better. But if you practice with real people, you could get an opportunity actually to get an appointment. So don't feel like you have to be great at this to get started. Just like Chris Heller mentioned on that first couple pages, he got the script and he would practice them over and over again, but he'd start using them and he'd get better and better with them. So don't let, don't let not knowing these stop you. On my prospecting station in my office, I still have these, even though I know these, I still have these right at my desk, so I can flip to them. Okay, just so I can look down at it and say, okay, just keep me on track. So, all right, thanks again, guys.